Are you ready to be scared? This video is about the most terrifying horror game of all time, Five Nights at Freddy's. And in the next 30 seconds, you'll discover why this game is universally frightening and why you'll never be the same again after playing it. Have you ever been playing Five Nights at Freddy's and suddenly start panicking?
Oh, fuck! No! Oh, God! Fucking fuck! I tried to push it!
It seems everyone without fail starts to fall and crumble in the anticipation of what's coming. But why? What stirs this feeling in us? Why do we feel like this? For that, let me continue to explain with the basics of FNAF and why it makes us feel like this. FNAF 1 is a survival horror game where the player takes on the role of a security guard working the night shift at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. This restaurant is a children's entertainment restaurant featuring 4 bipedal animatronic performers, Foxy, Bonnie, Freddy, and Chica. Your security office has 2 doors on opposite sides of the room and a camera system surveying the entire pizza place. You cannot move from this office. You are stuck there, bound to that seat, in anticipation of what's to come. And when you start your shift, these animatronics will start to move, coming to life, working their way towards you. And when they do so, you cannot move from this office. There's no running away, there is no escape. They are approaching you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Wind.
You can close the doors to keep them out and potentially return them to their starting position. Potentially. But in closing these doors drains your power, which is in a finite supply, and if that power runs out, the doors will open, leaving you exposed, vulnerable to these animatronics. And inevitably, a jump scare from the main animatronic, Freddy. Brace yourselves. Additionally, the 3 other animatronics upon reaching the office will also jump scare the player. The jump scares feature the animatronics lurching towards the player, grabbing them with a child's scream in the background, eventually falling to static. This is essentially our game over screen. Now, having reached this screen, sometimes you'll feel a sense of relief, as if you feel, a big weight off your shoulders because all that tension, all that atmosphere is gone. But only until you restart the game, where we're subject to it all again from the start. Why do we do this to ourselves?
I'm alive! Why am I alive? Oh God, what's going on? Everything's going horribly wrong!
Why do we keep clicking, playing again, knowing that tension is there, knowing a jump scare is just around the corner? While having the basics of FNAF now out the way, let me continue to explain. FNAF is a concept based on 2 pillars, the absence of information and the absence of action. Analysing this, the 2 major components of fear are the lack of information of your situation and the restriction of actions to control the situation, or to put it bluntly, the lack of ability to do anything about your impending doom. These 2 pillars combined leave the player feeling very small, helpless about their ability not to do anything, just watching events unfold in the anticipation of something that could happen, something that could go wrong. And usually it does.
Am I supposed to be? Oh my God! Oh!
With that established, we can understand that the game wants us to feel uninformed, wants us to feel helpless, as that is the game's fundamental design. But it still hasn't fully answered the question of why we still have this sweaty feeling when we're playing this game. And with that, let's move on to the player-controlled mechanics, where we have the doors, the lights, and the cameras. And in reducing the number of player-controlled mechanics, the game becomes more easily accessible or picked up to regular, more casual players. The mechanics are that simple that a basic phone call from the phone guy explains it all in his ramblings. And to put that into context, all of the phone call except the last paragraph was about the animatronics coming to life, how they potentially will kill you, and then the afterthought is actually the mechanics.
But hey, first station of the breeze. I'll chat with you tomorrow. Check those cameras and remember to close the doors only if absolutely necessary. Gotta conserve power. Alright, good night.
So in just 16 words, the man on the phone has communicated everything about the game you need to know. This abrupt end to the call as well exposes the player to the world, their cluelessness, their inability to do anything about their situation, sparking instant tension as soon as that phone call ends.
Good night.
Good night! Oh no! Oh, that's bad! I understand what I need to do.
The speed at which all this happens disorientates the player, leaving them in a state of further panic. But all this isn't enough to keep us on the edge of our seats, because that would slowly wear off. Oh no, so now we have to talk about the mechanics. And this part will potentially blow your mind. Now that you're left alone in your office, you can clearly see the two doors. The phone guy doesn't need to tell you how doors work because you know they open and shut. When these doors are clearly shut, nothing is getting through them, but when they're open, it leaves a big black peering hole where anything could hide. Further to this, the phone guy also says check the cameras. That's it, no context on that whatsoever. What are we checking for? What's in them? Are we checking the feed? What are we looking for? But within context, the player now understands that there are cameras, plural, so there's multiple. They also have a flip screen on the bottom, which will connect them to the tablet, which shows them the camera interface, a system with multiple cameras connected to it, with multiple camera streams, which shows the location of all these animatronics. But alas, we're yet to cover how these mechanics actually create fear and make you feel that sense of dread, that panic. Well, let me continue to explain. Besides what we mentioned, the player control mechanics, the animatronics mechanics are actually drip fed to the player through the actual phone guy's phone calls. Night 1, Night 2, Night 3, slowly telling you that they become more active. The mechanics are not instantly understandable, but this is natural for the progression of the game and progression of skill over time. If they explained everything off the bat how the animatronics worked, then that would remove the lack of information pillar, which is one of the prime reasons, as we said earlier, of generating fear, and again gives us that real sweaty palm feeling.
Where's the other one? Where's the other one? Where's the other one?
What's made FNAF so popular is the way the game creates the depth with a limited pool of information, the way it delivers its lore, delivers the story, and naturally over time the player starts to learn this information, starts to learn the mechanics, and that information pillar begins to diminish. That would naturally happen anyway with any type of game replaying the same scenario, but how do they keep you engaged and initially create fear? And arguably one of the most important mechanics in the game for creating that fear is the power, or the power mechanic. The power mechanic is probably one of the most important mechanics, as it powers the doors which keep the animatronics from attacking you. And if that power runs out, them doors will automatically fling open, leaving you to be attacked by anything and everything out there.
Oh, the sounds, I don't like them.
If the player could just leave the doors shut forever, that would remove all the element of fear, that progression. Although they're stuck in one place, it wouldn't feel the same, because we know the animatronics would have no way of getting in, so we'd basically be just laughing at them from the office. However, because there is power, that means that they cannot keep them doors shut forever. Similarly, this goes for the cameras. If the player could use the cameras as much as they wanted, they'd know the position of every animatronic all of the time, because using the cameras also drains that power, feeding into the loop of lack of information, because they won't be able to use the cameras all of the time. Now, one might argue the fact that forget checking the cameras, I will just camp out the office, use my lights, and if I see the animatronics, I will close the doors. Now, this isn't the case because they've built in a mechanic to stop that. Foxy. If for whatever reason you decide not to use the cameras, Foxy will come out of Foxy's Cove and run down the corridor and then eventually jump scare the player, because you won't be able to stop him from entering the office because he's too quick. This stops players from not using the camera and just camping out the office, because the only way to stop Foxy from coming down that corridor is to keep your eye on Foxy's Cove. All of these mechanics combined stop you from gaining information, leaving you feel more helpless, giving you that sense of fear, dread, panic, because you don't have that information, again, feeding into that information pillar. All of this feeds into a hormonal component when it comes to fear and enjoyment. The hormonal reaction we get when we're exposed to a threat or crisis can motivate this love of being scared. The moment we feel threatened, we feel increasingly more strong and powerful physically and more intuitive emotionally. All of these feelings give us an enjoyment towards fear, hence why we keep playing it again and again to experience these feelings. The jump scares in FNAF give us a level of dopamine, as well as people also experience a rush of endorphins following a scare. All of this combined make FNAF an absolute hit for everybody involved. Enjoyment, fear, these post-endorphin hits, and all in all, because it's so accessible, everyone wants to do it. And it leaves us coming back time and time again, having them jump scares time and time again. It all starts to make sense now. FNAF also has an extremely claustrophobic and helpless atmosphere. The lore is also very vague, and yet has a strong sense of something terrible has happened here. So even if you've played any of the other games or not played any of the games at all, you will know the story. It just adds to your helplessness because there's nothing you can do about it. You also know that the animatronics can't be talked to, tricked, or reasoned with. The only strategy is to keep them out, to hide. Although sounding extremely simple on paper and premise, it's actually a masterpiece by Scott Cawthon and the team. Many people had simply believed that Scott Cawthon has based his game on Chuck E. Cheese, and that is not the case at all. Scott actually based his game on the failings of his older games. Where critics had said his older games looked like bad, scary animatronics, so he took that idea and ran with it, creating his own scary animatronic game from all his past failures. And in doing so, FNAF was a hit. He then used this formula and framework to create several other games with exactly the same premise. And the saying goes, if it's not broke, don't try and fix it. Where all these games feed into the same mechanical loop. Lack of information and the lack of action. But I do digress. The original FNAF was so easy to pick up that it was accessible to everyone. People who were not really hardcore gamers. The casual gamer could pick this up and have fun with it, which really helped in its surge of popularity and reach. And with the tapping into the lack of information pillar, that affects near enough everybody. Everyone gets that primal fear. It was not a personalized, subjective fear such as arachnophobia or fear of clowns, etc. This fear of lack of information and lack of inability to do anything is basically in everybody, which is why we all have that fear of dread, the panic when we play the original FNAF. Now, if you are a huge FNAF enthusiast, I highly recommend checking out all my other things on the channel, my theories, my long form videos, because you will enjoy them. Don't forget to hit that like button because it does really help me out a lot, and I did work hard on this video. I'm Twisty, the Twisted Animatronic, and stay safe out there, superstars.